And this next one, man, this is another pretty fun fight. This should be fun to watch here. Jimmy Flick taking on Charles Energy Johnson. Charles Johnson, he's coming back really quick. He had that controversial win over Zhalgas Zhumagulov just over a month ago. Now he's coming back. He's fighting Jimmy Flick, who was expecting to go against Jeff Molina, who I think was actually a better opponent for Jimmy Flick because he was a fighter in the rankings that has a little bit questionable grappling. Jimmy Flick could have potentially got him to the ground and gotten a win against a top 15 guy, and I believe it was a better matchup because Molina isn't as good on the ground and isn't as good with his takedown defense, in my opinion, as someone as Charles Johnson, and he's just not as long and rangy and athletic either. But, with Jimmy Flick, he's coming off that retirement, which kind of throws his career in a little bit of, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just kind of makes it a little bit harder to read someone like him because obviously he was trying to find the way out. He wasn't necessarily extremely confident, or maybe he just wasn't willing to grind and make this his full-time job. At one point he wanted to call it quits, which you never really hear the best fighters in the world saying they want to retire unless they're at the end of their careers, whereas Jimmy Flick had just started in the UFC, so it does kind of lend you to think, is he really going to be out there being able to take damage and battle through, or is he going to take that damage and kind of look for the way out? To me, it's to be determined a little bit, but so far in his career, Jimmy Flick has only fought one way, and it's all action. And with Charles Johnson, this is a good opponent for him because some fights Charles Johnson can get into kind of a mode where he's trying to be a little bit too pretty, and he can get a little bit inactive, just pressure and try to look for those perfect counters and the one-shot attacks, and sometimes his volume can really go down and it can make fights very close. He has been in a lot of split decisions and close decisions throughout his career, but with Jimmy Flick really putting the pressure on, being the fighter that he is, I think that he's going to make Charles Johnson up that volume and the work rate and really go to work in this one and have to fight to get the victory. And both these guys have pretty much contrasting styles. Where Charles Johnson, he's more of a Muay Thai fighter, even though he's very well-rounded and he can do it all. He's good in the clinch. He's good with his takedown defense, even though that's probably the weakest aspect of his game. His striking is high level. He's fast, slick, good counters. He has nice fast kicks, fast hands, and he also has pretty good grappling skills. His get-ups are good if you do take him down. He's hard to submit. He's never been finished. He has a good top game, decent takedowns in the clinch himself. And for Jimmy Flick, he's kind of more of a specialist. He has kind of mediocre striking where he pressures forward and tries to be aggressive to get the takedown, and then he's a submission artist, man. He's very creative with the submissions as well. He'll get flying submissions. We saw that against Cody Durden. He's willing to pull guard to get submissions, and in scrambles he can get submissions. So very dangerous on the ground, and he's just trying to get you there and hit that finish. And historically, Flick has been a kill or be killed fighter. He's been someone that goes out there, he either submits you early or he gets knocked out, and that's kind of been the story of his career. And I feel like it's going to be similar here. He's a huge underdog, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like he should be a little bit closer on the money line because when you have someone like Jimmy Flick, he's always dangerous, can always get the win and surprise Charles Johnson. But Charles Johnson has never been submitted. He's never been finished. I think he's much more athletic, much slicker. He's the bigger guy, and I think on the feet he really could piece up Jimmy Flick and potentially knock him out. I also think somewhere where there's going to be a big advantage for Charles Johnson is the clinch. I think the clinch knees, the clinch elbows could potentially be the demise of Jimmy Flick. I feel like Flick is going to really try hard to get in that clinch. Charles Johnson's a veteran. He's not going to, fall for a sloppy guard pull or anything like that. He needs to be wary of the flying submissions, but I think in that clinch he could beat him up with knees, with the elbows. I think at range, Johnson's really going to have a big edge, and I don't think Flick has the wrestling to get the fight to the ground. I think Flick tends to capitalize a lot on fighters that make mistakes or grapplers that take him down, and then he could submit them. And with Charles Johnson, he's going to get a guy that's going to be on his movement game. He's going to be looking to pull counter. He's going to be looking to beat him up when he closes the distance in the clinch. And I think that Charles Johnson is going to be able to get Jimmy Flick out of there. I'll say he gets a first round or second round TKO here. I feel like Flick is going to fight hard. He's going to be trying to get inside, get it to the ground. And he stayed around the sport. He's been doing some commentary and stuff like that. So it's not like he totally has abandoned MMA since he's retired. But I think that's also going to play a factor, just Jimmy Flick's ring rust, and I think Johnson fighting so frequently as he usually does is going to give him an edge. And I'm going to go with Charles Johnson here to get the finish. And that's more what I'm kind of confident on here. I think that this fight's not going to go to decision. I feel like the under kind of got steamed at this point. It was at minus 110 at a certain stage, and I felt like at that point would have been a really good bet. Now it's almost minus 200. I think last time I saw it was minus 195, which at that point I don't know if I could warrant a play there. But I do feel like this is going to go under 2.5, and I think that Charles Johnson is going to be the winner here by TKO. I don't necessarily agree with him being a minus 450 favorite, but I am going to say he goes out there and picks up the victory here.